Starting at number 10, it's important to know that Islam is the name of the religion, and a person who practices Islam is known as a Muslim. The adjective Islamic usually refers to objects and places and things, not people though. So you wouldn't say the Islamic people, you would say the Muslim people. And the term Mohammedanism used to describe the faith we refer to now as Islam, but Mohammedanism is an outdated term and some find it to be very offensive. You'll often find that Muslims do not describe Islam as a religion. Islam is often referred to as a deen, which comes from the Arabic word for way of life. Muslims believe that Islam is more than just a religious belief, but it's a way of living in accordance with one's religious faith. The argument, however, arises given the use of the term religion. So to others, the word religion and the phrase way of life are exactly the same thing, but I just wanted to just mention that. All, if not most of you, have heard the term jihad, and in the Western world the word has been misused to mean holy war. Now the word jihad does not mean holy war, it actually means to struggle or to strive. In a religious context it means a struggle to successfully surrender one's will to the will of God. Now the term holy war gives a notion that the struggle is between Muslims and non-Muslims, which is totally the wrong context of jihad. There are also 6 articles of faith in Islam known as Arkan al-Iman, and these are basic beliefs that one must have in order to be considered a true Muslim. There's a belief in one God, the belief in all the true prophets of God, belief in the original scriptures revealed to Moses, David, as well as the Prophet Muhammad. There's a belief in angels, belief in the day of judgment and the hereafter, and finally the belief in predestination by God, or in other words, fate. In relation to Christianity, you may have heard that Christianity and Islam are basically the same religion, right? Well, in the Christian belief, they believe that Jesus died for the sins of humanity, and that's completely foreign in the Islamic concept. So the two religions are not in agreement based on the central teaching there. Islam teaches that one day the day of judgment will happen and every person will be resurrected and will be accountable to God for every word or deed that they've done. So a practicing Muslim is always striving to be righteous while hoping and praying for God's acceptance. Whereas in Christianity, Jesus dies as a substitute for the sins of everyone that has lived in the past, present, and future, and because of that, people have the opportunity to even be considered righteous by God in the day of judgment. So two completely different fundamental central beliefs. Muslims also follow the lunar calendar or the Hijri calendar. The lunar calendar has about 11 days less than the solar calendar. Thus, every year, the month of the lunar calendar occurs 11 days prior to the previous solar year. There are 2 major holidays in Islam. There's Eid al-Adha, and that is at the end of the pilgrimage to Mecca, and Eid al-Fitr is at the end of Ramadan. And by the way, Ramadan is the 9th month of the lunar calendar, when it's believed that the Prophet Muhammad received the messages of the Quran. Another interesting fact is that Muslims had created a house of wisdom, Beit ul-Hikmat in Arabic, and it was active during the 9th to the 13th centuries, where both Muslims and non-Muslim scholars sought to translate the world's knowledge into Arabic. Many classic works that might have otherwise been lost were preserved in Arabic and Persian and later translated into languages like Turkish, Hebrew, as well as Latin. Only 3 more facts left, and this one is very interesting. So in Islam, Allah has 99 names and each of the name has a meaning, and Muslims believe that God has revealed 99 names or attributes in the Quran, and it's through these names that one can come to know the Creator. And a few of these names are, obviously I'm not going to go through all 99 of them, but there's Ar-Rahman, meaning the all-merciful. There's Al-Alim, and that means the all-knowing or the omniscient. Al-Wali means the protecting friend, patron, and helper. And finally, Ar-Razak, that's the ever-providing. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. If you want to know more, just Google names of Allah. Second last fact is that if all Qurans in the world today were destroyed, the original Arabic would still remain. This is because millions of Muslims called Hafiz, or guardians or memorizers, depending on the context, have actually memorized the Quran letter by letter, word for word, from the beginning all all the way to the end. As a matter of fact, all chapters from the Quran recited in each of the 5 formal prayers performed daily, those are done to keep it fresh in the mind of Muslims. And the 5 prayers are the Fajr, which happens at dawn, the Duhur, that's the noon prayer, then there's the Asr, that happens in the afternoon, Maghrib is the sunset, and Isha'a happens at night. Alright guys, so although the Arab world is often seen as the historical center and heartland of Islam, Arabs actually only make up 20% of the world's Muslim population. 30% of them come from the Indian subcontinent, and the rest of them live in Asia outside the Middle East and the West. The country with the largest Muslim population is Indonesia, and that's home to 13% of the entire Muslim population worldwide. Islam is also the largest religion in the entire continent of Africa. Mind blown, right? Yeah, I know. It's usually just always associated with Arabs, especially here in the West. Starting at number 10, we have mistreating your wife. So mistreating your spouse is one of the biggest sins, and it's considered haram in Islam. Now the Prophet Muhammad, he taught people that they need to be very friendly and kind to their wives. According to Muslim belief, Prophet Muhammad even stated that you need to try to make your spouse your best friend. In a hadith narrated by Al-Tirmidhi, it says, the Prophet said, the best of you are those who are the best to their wives, and I am the best of you to my wives. The next thing considered haram in Islam is tattoos. Now there's a hadith that says this, may Allah curse the women who do tattoos and those from whom tattoos are done, those who pluck their eyebrows and those who file their teeth for the purpose of beautification and alter the creation of Allah. Specifically, that's found in Al-Bukhari Al-Libas, number 5587. Charging interest is at number 8, and the term riba refers to interest, and this is something that is completely haram in Islam, largely due to the fact that it makes poor people even poorer. So like if you owe money and you're charged interest, in the end, you end up poor because you end up spending more money than you actually owed. Now in the hadith from Abdullah ibn Hamzallah, this is what is recorded that the Prophet Muhammad had said. The Prophet said, a dirham or riba which a man receives knowingly is worse than committing adultery 36 times. And you know, debt payments is what kills a lot of people, because if you owe $20,000 with interest, you probably owe closer to $25,000, $30,000 in some cases. Next time I gotta pay off a car loan or something, I'm gonna tell them, listen man, you're charging interest on that? That's haram. Adultery and fornication come in at number 7. Now there's a passage in the Quran, Surah 17 verses 32 that says this, and do not approach unlawful sexual intercourse, indeed it is ever an immorality and is evil as a way. So of course having relations outside of your marriage, as well as having intimate relations not being married, that's haram. Drinking alcohol is another big haram thing in Islam, and it's found in the Quran, Surah 5 verses 90. There's a passage that says this, O you who have believed, indeed intoxicants, gambling, sacrifices on stone altars to other than Allah, and divining arrows are but defilement from the work of Satan. So avoid it that you may also be successful. By the way guys, if you're finding this episode interesting, we do have more videos like this. I have a link to a playlist below where you can find more videos similar to this on similar topics, especially that video that we did on surprising things mentioned in the Quran. Yeah, very mind-blowing. It's fascinating, very interesting episode. Link to that is down below in the video description section. I'll also have it for you in the card section of this episode. Now moving on to number 5, slaughtering animals the wrong way. This is also haram. So if a Muslim is slaughtering an animal without saying Allah's name, it'll be considered haram. A person should say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. Also, this is what the Quran has to say in Surah 6 verses 121. Eat not, O believers, of that meat on which Allah's name has not been pronounced at the time of slaughtering of the animal, for it is fisq, which is a sin. Most of you, even if you're not Muslim, probably knew this already. Eating pork, that is haram. Even if you use Allah's name during the slaughtering of a pig, eating pork is still going to be haram. Surah 5 verses 3 says this, prohibited to you are dead animals, blood, the flesh of swine, and that which has been dedicated to other than Allah. And those animals killed by strangling, or by a violent blow, or by a headlong fall, or by the goring of horns, and those from which a wild animal has eaten, except what you are able to slaughter before its death, and those those which are sacrificed of stone altars, and prohibited is that you seek decision through divining arrows. That is grave disobedience. This day those who believe have despaired of defeating your religion. So fear them not, but fear me, the day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you, and have approved for you Islam as religion. But whoever is forced by severe hunger with no inclination to sin, then indeed Allah is forgiving and merciful. So yeah, very long passage that included the point that eating pork is haram in Islam. In number 3, we have suicide. In the hadith, specifically Bukhari Janaiz 84, it says, "He who commits suicide by throttling shall keep on throttling himself in the hellfire forever. And he who commits suicide by stabbing himself shall keep on stabbing himself in the hellfire." Number 2, a very big haram thing, making statues and pictures, especially when it comes to prophets of Islam. Now in the hadith narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar, this is what it says. Allah's messenger said, "Those who make these images will be punished on the day of resurrection, and it will be said to them, make alive what you have created." And finally, most Muslims would agree on this, that shirk is the biggest haram thing in the religion of Islam. Shirk refers to associating partners with Allah, and this is the most serious thing. It's said that the Prophet Muhammad said these words, "Shall I not tell you of the most serious of the major sins?" We said, "Of course, O Messenger of Allah." He said, "Associating anything in worship with Allah." Also, there's a verse in the Quran, Surah 4 verses 48, and this is what it has to say. "Indeed, Allah does not forgive association with him, but he forgives what is less than that for him who he wills. And he who associates others with Allah has certainly fabricated a tremendous sin." So in the religion of Islam, only Allah can be seen or viewed or worshipped in the position of Allah. Nobody else or nothing else can be compared. It's believed in the Islamic faith that although no one knows the day of judgment, like when it will be, Allah and his messenger Muhammad, they have described it in great detail of what exactly is going to happen. Maybe not every single like specific detail, but enough detail for people to grasp exactly what's going to happen. Now, next thing to note is that the Prophet Muhammad was asked many times by a lot of his followers when this day is actually going to arrive, because people just wanted to know. Now, the answer even now, even though we have a lot of different advances in technology and sciences and just we've gained a whole lot more knowledge since then, the answer is still the same. And that answer is only Allah knows when the hour that starts the day of judgment will happen. So when the angel Gabriel came to the Prophet Muhammad in the form of a well-dressed man, one of the questions that was asked was about this day. And the Prophet Muhammad answered that the one questioned about it knows no better than the questioner. Also in the Quran, it's written, people ask you concerning the hour, say, knowledge of it is only with Allah, and what may make you perceive, perhaps the hour is near. And that's found in Surah 33 verses 63. Another thing to know about Judgment Day in Islam is that when a trumpet will be sounded for the first time, that will result in the death of the remaining sinners on the earth. Then there's going to be a period of 40 years after which the 11th sign is the sounding of the second trumpet to signal the resurrection. And it's also written in the Quran, and the horn will be blown, and whoever is in the heavens and whoever is on the earth will fall dead, except whom Allah wills. Then it will be blown again, and at once they will be standing looking on. That, by the way, is taken from Surah 39 verses 68. Next thing to know is that everybody's going to be running to the place of gathering, while the enemies of God will be traveling on their faces with their legs upright. And also there will be no more injustice. Now in the Quran it says, indeed Allah does not do injustice even as much as an atom's weight. While if there is a good deed, he multiplies it and gives from himself a great reward. That's taken from Surah 4 verses 40. Now another thing that I found out is that at the time of divine judgment, each person's book of deeds is going to be read. And that includes every small and great thing that they did is going to be recorded in there. But all their actions before adolescence will be completely omitted. Maybe there's some varying views about that, but in either case, records are going to be given with the right hand if they are good and with the left hand if they are evil. Even the smallest acts won't be ignored. In the Quran, it says this: that day the people will depart separated into categories to be shown the results of their deeds. So whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. And that's taken from Surah 99 verses 6 to 8. Picking off from the last fact, this is going to be followed by a divine and merciful justice. So the age of the hereafter, or the rest of eternity, is the final stage after the judgment day, when all will receive their judgment from God. Indeed, those who believed and those who were Jews and Christians or Sabians before Prophet Muhammad, those among them who believed in Allah and the last day and did righteousness, will have their reward with their Lord, and no fear will there be concerning them, nor will they grieve. And that passage, by the way, is taken from Surah 2 verses 62 in the Quran. So that sort of answers the question inside of Islam, like what about the people before the Prophet Muhammad? If they did righteous, they believed they're all going to be judged righteous and they're going to go to heaven, they're going to get their reward. Those that didn't though, that's a different story. The belief comes from throughout the years that God may have revealed some truth to people, and then they had a choice to follow that or not, and then even more truth was revealed. So obviously with more truth is more responsibility. If you're not following that, then you'll be judged according to that. Next up, at fact number 4, the dead are going to stand in a massive group, and they're going to be awaiting the details of their righteous deeds as well as their sinful acts, and then their ultimate judgment. The Prophet Muhammad will be the first to be resurrected, by the way. Now, if somebody did good deeds, then they're going to go to Jannah or heaven, and if unrighteous, they're going to go to Jahannam, or in other words, hell. Yeah, so pretty much reiterating what I just mentioned. And you know, punishments will include severe pain as well as shame. Now, there will also be a punishment of the grave. So for those who disbelieve between death and the resurrection, yeah, there's a different kind of punishment for them. Islam also teaches that this life is simply a test to determine someone's place in the eternal life after death. Now, those who understand the reality ahead of them are aware that their ultimate fate after death is based on their actions in this life. So individuals that know this, they're believed to be thankful for all the blessings that God has given them and humbly worship Him while promoting goodness in all respects of their lives. So when a person embraces such a God-centric way of life, their purpose extends beyond merely enjoying worldly pleasures. There's bigger purpose, there's more fulfillment, more things to accomplish, an all-round more fulfilling and satisfying life. So Muslims believe if you can live like that in this life, you're gonna have an amazing reward in the hereafter. Now, the next thing to know is that in the afterlife, the evildoers, they will not be able to escape the grip of justice, and the victims of worldly suffering will be repaid for their pain. People who spend their lives responsibly avoiding temptations to commit sins, they will also be rewarded. And as the Quran mentions, and Allah created the heavens and earth in truth, and so that every soul may be recompensed or repaid for what it has earned, and they will not be wronged. And that's taken from Surah 45 verses 22. So that distinction is pretty important because, like I did talk about, there's going to be a reward. So like if you do good deeds, you're going to be rewarded. If you do bad deeds, you're going to be rewarded. But also for every single thing that you suffered and you had to endure, that's going to come with another reward on top of the other rewards that you would be receiving for living a good life. And final thing I want to share in this episode is that Muslims seek salvation in the hereafter by living a God-conscious and virtuous life in this world. So the fear of accountability in the hereafter, along with hope in the promise of God's ultimate justice, motivates Muslims to really orient their present lives around the comprehensive worship of God and the true purpose of human existence. So in this way, they really seek in this temporary life for eternal joy. To the righteous, it will be said, "O reassured soul, return to your Lord, well pleased and pleasing to Him, and enter among my righteous servants and enter my paradise." That quote, by the way, is taken from the Quran, Surah 89, verses 27 to 30. So it's like a double-edged sword. It's like there's like that fear of, okay, I ain't trying to get punished. Then there's also the hope of like, well, there's so much more to look forward to. So it's like sort of like that fear keeps you in line and that hope motivates you. The first lie is Muslims worship a moon god. So some non-Muslims mistakenly believe that Allah is an Arab god or a moon god or some type of idol. However, Allah is in the Arabic language a proper name for God, and Arabic speaking Christians also use the name Allah for God. Now, one of the main factors of this belief is because one of the first uses of the crescent moon came from the 2nd century BC, where it represented the ancient Mesopotamian moon god Nana, and now today the crescent moon is associated with Islam. So many non-Muslims say, well, look, you worship the moon god. There's even a moon in the symbol of your religion. Next up at number 9, most Muslims are Arabs. Okay, so Islam is often associated with Arab people. But did you know that Arabs make up only 15% of all Muslims? The country with the largest Muslim population is actually Indonesia, and large numbers of Muslims are also found in Asia, Africa, Europe, as well as other parts of the world. Muslims are encouraged to learn Arabic because they believe that the only language that you can really get the full extent of the Quran is in Arabic. Islam oppresses women. Practices like forced marriage, spousal abuse are actually things that contradict Islamic law, and most of the bad treatment towards women actually come from people's own evil natures and their own cultures and their beliefs, and it's completely separate from the faith of Islam itself. Muslims are extremists. Now this is a big one. Many Muslim leaders and scholars frequently speak out against all forms of extremism, and they offer different explanations and interpretations of Muslim teachings that have been twisted by others to promote extremism. Muslims believe the entire Quran, taken as a complete text, gives a message of hope as well as peace and faith and good virtues, and any form of extremism cannot be justified under proper interpretation of the Islamic faith. Oh boy! Islam is intolerant of other faiths. Muslims are constantly reminded that they are not the only ones who worship God. Specifically, Jews and Christians are called the people of the book in the Quran, meaning that those are people who also received previous revelations from God and are also can be seen as true worshippers of God. Also in Surah 2 verses 256 in the Quran, it says, "There is no compulsion in religion." And this is interpreted to mean that you cannot force anyone to become a Muslim. You still gotta respect other people's beliefs. Halfway in at number 5, jihad means holy war. So jihad in Arabic does not mean holy war. It actually means to strive or to struggle or to persevere. And jihad can be something that's done personally, or it can also involve a community. So in effect, jihad really means to become closer to God. And this type of struggle, jihad, is to ensure that a peaceful and equitable community still continues to exist. Of course, self-defense is acceptable to protect yourself and your community from any sort of like dangers. However, any form of offensive aggression is prohibited in Islam. Alright, number 4, Islamic prayer doesn't really have any meaning. Most people now know that Muslims are to pray 5 times a day. And now in Islam, there are several benefits to prayer. The daily prayers help keep Muslims' minds on God, and it helps Muslims to remember the Quran because they recite passages of the Quran, as well as it's a time to go before God to express thanks, to ask for forgiveness, to look for guidance in your life. So there's a whole lot of meaning for Muslims when it comes to prayer. Alright, number 3, Jesus is completely irrelevant in Islam. That's actually not true. Jesus, however, is revered as a prophet and the Messiah in Islam. The Islamic faith believes that Jesus will return as a Messiah and defeat the Antichrist. This view is also very similar to the Christian view. The only difference is that Muslims don't view Jesus as the Son of God. He's just seen as a prophet when you compare it to the Christian faith. Alright guys, we got 2 more left. So the crescent moon is a universal symbol of Islam. It's actually, yeah, it's not. Okay, so the early Muslim community did not really have any sort of symbols or anything. Now the crescent moon, as well as the star symbol, they actually predate Islam by several thousands of years. And as a matter of fact, they weren't affiliated with Islam at all until the Ottoman Empire placed it on their flag. And over time, the symbol became more associated with Islam, but it's not actually their official symbol. That just doesn't exist. And the number one biggest lie, myth, misconception about Islam is that Muhammad is the founder of Islam and Muslims worship him. Muslims believe that Muhammad was God's final prophet and communicated God's final revelation to humanity. Muslims consider Adam, the first man created, to actually be the first Muslim because he was, of course, surrendered to the will of God, and that's what the term Muslim means, one who surrenders to the will of God. Muhammad is held in great esteem, but he's not to be worshipped because worship is only meant to be directed towards God, and it's completely forbidden to worship anyone or anything else. Muslims may, however, celebrate Muhammad's birthday similar to the way that Americans celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day.